Hey Revolutionaries, I'm excited to bring you this week's episode with John Fields, who is a co-founder of AC3, the All Content Creators Currency, which is a blockchain, token-based startup that's tackling the problem of getting content creators paid. Yeah, paid fairly, consistently, and adequately. So I can't wait to get to this week's episode, but before we get there, I need to say thank you. Thank you for everyone who's listening. Thank you for everyone who's been listening. Thank you for everyone who's put a review on iTunes or on the Facebook page, or has commented on the Facebook page, or has sent me an email, or has reached out to me, or has, moved forward or made a small step in their own reinvention, or has been able to appreciate the world differently, or see things differently, or be a little more open-minded about all the different things that are happening in the world, how technology is shifting things around, because it's the 1-year anniversary of Jim Jim's Reinvention Revolution podcast. Yeah, with this episode, it's the 1-year anniversary. Woohoo! Woohoo! Whoop! Oh, that was a little bit too loud. Ed, that was for you. That one was for you. But yeah, it is a big deal, and I feel so honored and humbled by everyone who's been listening, and I've had a great time engaging with my guests, and just wanted to say thank you for everyone who's been listening out there, the community, the larger Jim Jim's Reinvention Revolution podcast community, and also some of the folks that helped me get started or inspired the podcast in the first place, like Anton Kraley from DSL, Johnny FD from Travel Like a Boss, Paul Colligan, who's a great podcaster who helped me learn how to actually podcast, and Dave Jackson who helped me get my hosting and distribution going with Libsyn. And thanks to all the guests that have come on, especially some of the early guests that took a chance on me out of the box before people knew about the show. And thanks to every guest, really, that continues to come on and continues to take a chance on me. So I really appreciate it. And I appreciate their sharing and giving attitude, being focused on providing value for you guys, the listeners out there. So that's what the show's all about. And hopefully I'll be able to continue to procure the right folks and continue to turn people on to interesting things in the way I see the world out there. So thanks again, and let's celebrate this anniversary. Get out there and make today someday. Today could be someday, so just get to it. And speaking of getting to it, let's get to this week's 1-year anniversary episode. You guys are going to love this because John is offering a cash giveaway at the end of the episode. Cash, that's right, real money. So listen closely.
Welcome to Jim Jim's Reinvention Revolution podcast, the show that explores reinvention in the digital age as it relates to career, creativity, and technology. Stay tuned for interviews with professionals, entrepreneurs, and creatives that have reimagined success and are making a pivot. If you'd like to listen to the entire back catalog, visit JimJim'sReinventionRevolution.com for instant access. And now, here's your host, Jim Jim.
There's only so much time in the day, and you're trying to educate people on how to, explore. And I'm sure there's this element of time management and making smart decisions, because you can get lost in the weeds on a lot of junk, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. That's the struggle. That's part of the struggle that we were in these days. Really, is how do you know what's important to you? What has value, what doesn't have value, or what will have value to your life? To me, that's the challenge of not being totally just single-minded and being open to change and tasting different things, I guess, but figuring out how to put it in context. So
yeah, right.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Cool. All right, here we go. Hey everybody, hey, this is Jim Jim, and welcome to episode 29 of Jim Jim's Reinvention Revolution podcast. And I'm talking today with John Fields, who's the co-founder of AC3, which stands for Content Creators Currency. And we're talking about the future of payment and security for content creators out there. So, John, I can't wait to dig into this. Welcome to the revolution.
Hey, thanks, Jim. Excited to be here.
Well, thanks for taking some time out of your day to get this going, and thanks for working through the technical problems we had. But we're connected, and you sound great. So let's dig right into this. What are we talking about? AC3 and for content creators. What are you talking about?
Well, I think the good place to start is just talking about the landscape of how digital content has changed in in the last 10 years, 5 years. And you really need to, I ask this question a lot of times when I'm talking with somebody for the first time about AC3 is, who consumes digital content? That's who we're going after. And the answer to that is everybody. We're all on our phones, we're all on our tablets, we're all on computers.
Right.
For good or bad. We're always
right. For sure.
And then we've had some conversations, and you've brought up some really good points on the other side of that is, well, who's creating digital content? And I won't say it's everybody, but it's a lot of people, right? There's a lot of people that want to get their message out there, that want to educate, that want to be heard, that want to sell, that want to provide entertainment. And so there's this big ecosystem out there of digital content. And the question is, how do you smartly spend your time accessing it, spending your money wisely, and doing it to where you feel like it's a secure transaction, a trusted system. So that's kind of the big picture of where we're starting.
I see. Okay. And yeah, there's just been this just unbelievable explosion of content. And like we were talking earlier, I think initially people, when you think of content, you think of artists, educators, musicians, people that are trying to get, their content out there, their brand out there, et cetera. But it seems like more and more as we get into this digital era that even personally, when you're posting stuff on Facebook or social media, or even for your individual businesses now that are leveraging social media, we're all starting to get into the content business, the media business in a way, right? And so we do need, I think, better or different tools or things that will, ease the trading between those things a lot. Is that kind of what you're going after?
Yeah, that's right. Our focus is to be the ultimate marketplace, to where you can go to one place to find, to purchase, and enjoy quality digital content. So I use the word quality. We've talked about exclusive, but what we're trying to do is have a place that those that are looking to purchase content, we say content worth owning, have a place to go to. And that's where you have to start. You have to find that supply-demand dynamic of where you can put on one platform quality content, and usually those followers and users will come along because they go to where the digital content creator is. We do support all creators, where somebody who's a vlogger or an influencer on YouTube, we want to help all content creators. However, we're pretty picky on who we allow onto our platform, and that's of course it's a bandwidth issue, but we really want to be the place to go to find the cream of the crop across the board. It can be from education, it can be music, but it's important that we're able to bring on a partner that can demonstrate that they have a following and that they have users that will take the time to purchase and enjoy their content.
I see. Well, there are many other platforms out there that I'm sure everybody, is very used to these days. Things like YouTube, things like the pay streaming services that do music, those types of things. How's this different, or what's different about your approach? Because there is some monetization, obviously, that goes on with YouTube and ad things, and there is some transactional things that happens with those today. But how is AC3 going to be different? What do you guys bring to the party differently there?
Sure. So in payment alone in blockchain, it's just not enough, in my opinion, to have a business. If you look at the 800-pound gorilla, Bitcoin, its intended use was for consumer transactions, and it's reasonable to say that has been a failure because I don't know how many people today that have been purchasing things with Bitcoin, but it's not that many, particularly in the U.S. Now, there's of course in South Korea and Japan, there's some usage there, but just the idea of just disrupting payment, there's just not enough friction there. Just to say, hey, here's a better payment solution, because our payment systems for the most part, work. I mean, everyone's using, whether they know it or not, some type of digital currency. If you use a debit card or a credit card, you're moving money digitally.
Right.
Now there are fees associated with that, of course, and there's problems with security. But we built a multi-purpose blockchain. So we do want to improve and lower. We have no transaction costs, which is critical. We want all the money to go to the content creator who provides their content. We focus on security, which is critical, particularly with all the hacks and everything that we're hearing about. The one of the best things about the blockchain is its ability to kind of really keep a record and track of transactions. And because of that, it's a lot of times why people want to create a payment system, because of that ability to have this secure transaction that could not be, is nearly impossible to go in and to change. But we're a tech company, although we built our infrastructure on the blockchain. What sits on top of that are digital wallets, and the currency that moves is our cryptocurrency, the AC3. So the blockchain's our infrastructure, the digital wallet is our product, and then what moves between the wallets is our AC3 coin. And what that AC3 coin allows you to do is to do two things with it.
Okay.
You can go to our digital wallet, and you can search for our partners that we've selected as content creators. Those partners have two options. You can buy one off. You could buy let's say, learn how to code. So you could buy a package, a 2-month package on how to become a coder from one of our partners, or a recurring feature, to where you can hit a button on your wallet, and what that will allow you to do is each month it will take a certain amount of coins out of your wallet, and in return you have exclusive access to your favorite influencer or content creator, or exclusive content itself.
Wow. Okay. So whatever you just said there, you just like melted my mind. Okay. You kind of like, I'm just trying to understand and like process all this. So I want to kind of deconstruct this a little bit for everybody. Okay. Because I think most people's experience today is with something like YouTube in terms of like consuming content, for example, and looking at those people as content creators. And this is a big difference, big difference in experience and a big difference in capabilities or offerings. So this is something that is built on the blockchain, and you have tokens for exchange, but it offers these other capabilities, I guess, and security features. So can you just describe that again? Because I just want to hear it again.
Yeah, sure. So in the simplest way to say it is, the infrastructure of what we've built, we built it with the blockchain, and there was a reason that we did that, as opposed to building it on another protocol.
Right.
We did it because part of our focus is payments, and it's been battle tested in terms of security as a good way to move assets from point A to point B. In addition to that, the blockchain allows us to have, and these are revolutionary features. I'm going to encourage your listeners to download our wallet, and they'll see blockchain technological advances that exist nowhere else, which we're really excited about. So, for instance, you can go to our wallet, and we have a discover feature, and what you can do is you can search for our partners, our content partners, within our digital crypto wallet. Now, someone said to me, well, how's that revolutionary? I can go to Amazon and put in shoes, and 1,000 shoes will pop up, right? So
that's right.
We certainly didn't invent the search feature. But what we did is we incorporate it into the blockchain and our digital wallet. So what you're going to be able to do this year, which is really exciting, is to be able to go in, which you can do the first two now. You can go in, search for partners. Mm-hmm. You can pay them directly from your digital wallet. And later this year, you're going to be able to listen to that song from, let's say Kendrick Lamar. Mm-hmm. If he joins our platform, he would release a song exclusively to our users, or he might release it 2 weeks ahead of time. What our technology allows you to do is listen to it, enjoy it, but you can't download it, you can't copy it, or you can't share it. So you can imagine that the creators love this ability to protect their content.
I see.
We're excited about having a place where you can do all this in a secure fashion, all in one place. If you think about right now, getting rid of the third party, that's exciting. If you're thinking about how you can secure that using cryptographic hashes, and other people are using cryptographic hashes to secure all kinds of things on the blockchain. Mm-hmm. But we're combining it on our platform. That's exciting. Now, what's interesting is to kind of think about how people purchase content now. The millennials, for instance, are kind of known not to, they like things for free, right? I think They were born with knowing that you don't pay for music, and that's okay. But they do like...
Ouch, that hurts me. Okay, keep going.
But, the membership model works very well, like a Spotify, right? So we're offering, we want to fill the demand of our content creators and users by saying, hey, you can have a membership, exclusive membership to who's important to you. And what you can also do is, you can purchase one-off events. So for instance, we're going to throw the first all cryptocurrency concerts. We have a venue picked out. We have a musician picked out. The whole thing is going to be financed with our AC3 coin. Mm. This is not, this is the first time we've ever announced this outside of our team, but this is
okay. Exclusive kind of right here.
Yeah. Well, it's exciting because it kind of, everybody's looking for a use case, right? Everybody's looking for, well, what's the utility of this?
Right.
And we're just doing it. We're building the technology. We're putting the partners in place, and the users are starting to purchase content. And that's exciting for us. So I know you asked me to regurgitate what I had said, which I did not do. There's just I get excited. There's so much to this,
right?
And we've built so much. We're builders, and there's a lot of promoters out there. Mm-hmm. We probably need to start promoting more, but we love to. Our team is about building, constructing, and making sure it's done right for kind of a longer term vision.
I see. Well, you know what? I think that's one of the big reasons why we connected when I first started talking to you, because you have this kind of creative understanding of the financial world, of the tech world, kind of the engineering world of how to move these things around, and you're willing to explore and figure out new ways to connect, and are trying to listen to the marketplace and really the creators that are out there. You have a sensitivity there in terms of like, hey, these guys, they're sort of in the world of free, but people still need to be connected. You want to motivate people to exchange value between each other and make it secure. So, I mean, this is kind of a real interesting thing to figure out, and really, I think fits the, my concept of the reinvention revolution of trying to understand the value and the new ways to explore technology that's out there. So in that regard, I'd like to rewind a little bit here and kind of give people a perspective of, how you got into this. Why did you start thinking about content creators and using the blockchain, et cetera? And, what's your kind of background in finances and in financial engineering? I'd like to kind of understand a little bit about that, because I think that's this new idea of currency and trading value is going to be much more fluid and interesting going forward than it's ever been. You know what I mean? So,
yeah. Yeah, I agree with you, of course, 100%. My background, a Midwestern fellow just like yourself, born in Indiana, and left there and went to California, and really just fell in love with the Bay Area and all the innovation and outside the box thinking that was happening there. I've always been interested in kind of value, money, assets. My first job was on the Pacific options floor with trading derivatives. And this concept of derivative, where something derives its value from an underlying asset, which is fascinating to me. And, ever since then, I've been pursuing an impossible mission, but how to find, almost a riskless investment or riskless trade, or where can you get that kind of that delta, that area of risk, where can you minimize that and maximize the upside? So I was involved in the capital markets for many, many years. And then about 8 or 9 years ago, over, with some friends over a cocktail or two, scribbled on the back of a napkin an idea I had for creating a new derivative. And there's not a lot of, if any, innovation in, financial engineering. There, so let's take.
Well, just stop there for a second. I think people, when they hear the term financial engineering, they think, "Oh, I know what that is. That's a crooked accountant." That's what that term means, right? I mean, people kind of just throw that, it just rolls off the tongue, and they think like, "Oh, yeah, that's some shady scheme or something like that." But I think they're missing that there is this concept of real financial engineering, like being creative and like leveraging different systems or different aspects of how to view the world and how to look at risk, like you're saying. And I think more moving forward, like we've seen tons of fintech, financial technology startups and these kinds of things lately, that this is a real new area of exploration and explosion kind of in a way. So I just want to kind of get that understanding out there, but go ahead with your story. Sorry, jump in there.
No, that's a good point, and there is a lot of innovation in avoiding taxes, as we've seen from some of these document leaks in the last couple of years.
Right. Well, that's true. Yeah.
As my grandmother said, if they would just apply their talents to the real world, they could probably do some amazing things.
Exactly.
But fintech's a good, and again, that's another broad term. Like, what is financial technology, which fintech stand for? What does that mean?
Right.
It's if you look at how people have been able to borrow money from the beginning of time, it's been, you usually go to a centralized source. Let's say a bank was option one. You would go to beg to family members or somebody you knew is 2, and 3 was you'd go down to I won't pick on anybody, but Squiggy on the corner who might loan you some money.
Right.
And if you didn't pay him back, your Squiggy was not going to be happy. Let's say.
Right.
That's been our how you are able to borrow money for a long period of time. Fintech has been trying to kind of disrupt that, but what they've really done a good job at is figuring out how to do better diligence, how to create algorithms, to have a platform to where you can now, with Prosper and Lending Club, within the last 5 years, you can go online, you can put your name in, put your information in, and they're going to run an algorithm and connect you with somebody who you're not going to know who it is, who says, "Hey, I'll loan you $35,000 with no collateral. You look like a good candidate," says the algorithm. That's pretty mind-blowing if you think about being able to do that. But I think a lot of those companies are taking the existing system and trying to streamline it, lower the cost, and make it faster, which is great.
Right.
But I look at myself as an inventor, somebody who's creating something new, something that's just hasn't been tried or thought of before. And a good opportunity was with solar and energy, natural resource consumptions, trying to reduce those different costs up front. So here was a way to think about how do you, so derivative is, as I mentioned earlier, you derive value from it.
Right.
How do you finance that that new solar panel by deriving the value from something else besides a loan. So is that from the house? Is that from the energy usage? And there has been some success in this area. I think Pace Financing had done a nice job. My idea was really interesting in terms of what we would do is we would finance up front. Let's say a 7-Eleven wanted to get a new compressor, which was a big cost of a 7-Eleven is all the refrigeration.
Right.
So we would fund up front the new compressor. They would own it. They wouldn't owe us any out-of-pocket money, and they would get the savings on day one. So it was a good deal, and for them it was almost too good to be true. Like, well, what's the catch? So, and what we did was we said, okay, if and when you sell that property, we're going to have a fee that's generated, very analogous to a municipal transfer fee tax, where you sell a property, you have to pay a small fee to the government. Well, California allows you to do private transfer fees. So we would put a private transfer fee on the property, and if that property in the next 30 years sold, we would receive a small percentage of the gross sales proceeds. Well, that was interesting because you could run this instrument with the land. So what happened was maybe the property would sell 0 times. That's a great deal for the property owner.
Sure.
But maybe it would sell 3 times or 4 times, and we would get paid each time. So what you ended up doing was creating this very interesting long-term cash flow stream that had low risk. I'm always trying to mitigate risk.
Right.
And it was a win-win. I mean, I think the best types of financial instruments and investments are win-wins, where the homeowner wins, the person who funded the upfront cost wins, but usually win-win situations are not overnight. It takes time.
Right. It's not a quick transaction, right?
That's right. And someone once told me, which a mentor of mine said that the surest and fastest way to become successful and rich is to work hard over a long period of time, which I which I agree with. So and I don't want to get too far into the innovation, but it's this concept of finding good systems that are efficient and fair, and of course it was a natural segue into getting into cryptocurrencies.
Right. Oh, well, thanks for sharing that story, because I just think it's just, it's interesting. And I've never talked to someone that's got this creative kind of look at the financial side of things. I've experienced that in engineering and technology a lot, but not in sort of the financial world, which I'm getting a little bit, stepping 1 foot closer into these days. Especially, I think all of us are going to experience that because of the blockchain and cryptocurrency. So it's affecting many different industries and in many different ways. So now I can see how this new blockchain and the creative part comes along. It's like I can see why, man, I got to get a piece of this. I got to figure out something, right? And probably it speaks to your creative side of understanding this real not friction, but dichotomy of this content that's being created, but figuring out how to capture value and stimulate and curate the right type of content.
That's right. Yeah.
Very, very interesting. So well, cool. Thanks again. Well, let's jump back to AC3 now and tell me, now that we kind of understand what's going on and where you're coming from, what are the big? Do you have big users now? What's going on right now? Like you said, there's some things that are available, and how is it being accepted, or what are people really finding good uses for?
So our focus from day one of how do you get this user base, how do you get deployment? We were very, looking back, very smart in saying, well, let's partner with the content creator. Let's incentivize, let's educate and explain to that content creator why it makes sense to join our platform. Now, we're not telling them, hey, you have to drop everything else. We tell them, hey, it's put a foot in the door. Let's put some content, on our platform. That's a much better, in our opinion, way to get distribution than to try to go to that his or her 1 million subscribers or followers and try to educate all 1 million of them.
Mm-hmm.
What we do is have the partner on board, and then they'll move over and incentivize and market to their followers. And so by doing it that way, we've been able to get have a acceleration of users join our platform. And it's just I guess it's our secret sauce. It's just how we approach finding kind of big numbers. Because if you get 1,000 people using your coin, it's cute, but it's not going to move the needle.
Right.
And and I'm not a conference guy, but I have gone to one crypto conference, and there were a lot of brilliant people walking around. And one I'll never forget, there was somebody had a PhD from MIT and had a really good plan, going to raise gaggles of money and build this. And then I just said, well, how are you going to get people to use it? And he said, well, they'll just come to it. It's they need it. And I said, well, I agree with you, but there's a lot of competition out there, and you've got to get on people's radars. If that's your attitude, you're going to have $100 million in marketing budget, just
that's
to
right.
compete with Facebook and Google and all that. And he looked at me like I had 3 eyes. He's like, I don't understand
Right.
what you're talking about. So
Right.
we really started off thinking, how do we get people invested into our platform, like you're doing, of where's the value and what is worth pursuing.
Mm-hmm.
We wanted to create a marketplace and tell a story that resonated with people. And if you look at this, esports and streaming, it's at first I was a little flummoxed, like, okay, why are people watching other people play video games, and why is that such a lucrative business for the gamer?
Right.
And it's people at the end want to be part of a tribe. They want to be part of a group. They want to be throughout their day when they have social time or downtime.
Mm-hmm.
They want to be connected with like-minded people. And so that was how we started off, thinking about how to get users. And what has happened is it took us a year to build our technology, a lot of time and money.
Right.
Because building your own chain, your own protocol is difficult. 99% of all the ICO crypto companies out there are on the Ethereum network. That's a smart contract, which is fine. But building a long-lasting protocol takes time and money. We've built that, and now we are adding 5 or 6 quality partners, and some of these are household names a week now. Mm-hmm. So that's how we're getting usage and demand.
I see. Oh, well, that's great, because that answers what my next question was going to be, is why did you create your own environment here versus leveraging Ether or Ethereum, or using Bitcoin but just putting a front end on it or something like that. So that helps me understand better of why you'd want to create your own environment with this, and it makes sense. I think we've really moved now from this 20th century idea of business and mass marketing, where Campbell's Soup and those types of products were really built for the mass market. I think going forward, you really do have to focus on these niches and these environments and tribes like you described, and I think it just makes a lot of sense of how the world will want to interact now. And now it's feasible to do this because we have the technology that can really drive it.
Yeah, that's right. And I'll just to end that, we build our own network because we want to build our own features. Mm-hmm. And there's just endless opportunities when you control that environment.
Right.
I think Ethereum, what they've done is brilliant. But if you build on top of you're building on top of something else, their chain, and they're going to get the recognition for that. You're bringing attention to the Ethereum network, and we're expecting to be a multi-billion-dollar company, to be the place to go to for content, and we want to soon allow developers, people to come in and kind of customize their own, almost like a white label, their own features. Right. On our network. So that's down the road, but that you couldn't do that on on another protocol. You need to build your own to have that optionality.
Right. Well, I think it's strategically smart, like you said, if you're starting your own company, to think about it this way. I mean, the people that are putting out tokens that are Ethereum based or Ether based tokens, it's maybe a more short term play, maybe for the next 15, 20 years, et cetera, that they'll get some value out of it, but it's going to be very competitive, and when the technology is changing so fast, it's going to be hard for them to leverage those new changes, where you guys will be like, hey, we can do that change, we can reinvent this thing tomorrow if we need to, right? Which you might need to these days. I mean, it's so crazy. What you brought up one other thing there about competition and how fast things are evolving. I know there's a few other things out there like Patron, and also another company called Patreon that are focused on getting content creation and making it less making less friction in terms of trading value. How do you see those type of companies? Can you maybe talk about those just a little bit?
Sure. Patron's out of Japan and relatively new. In fact, somebody just sent me a blurb on them. I think it was last month. And I remember the leader of the company is also a full-time DJ, dancer, and singer. So as far as a cool hit factor, I believe AC3 has probably already lost that battle.
Right, okay.
Yep. Can't do any of that. But what Patreon's trying to do is just be a payment system in the sharing economy. They're trying to help influencers keep more of their revenues, since the middleman keeps, a large portion of that. We agree with that. And that's, one of the tenets of why we started AC3. When I looked into Patreon, I couldn't fully understand their business model, and that's fine because they're just getting started. They're raising money, and they want to open up offices in Silicon Valley, I think was one of their use of funds. And look, who doesn't want that? Who doesn't want to have an idea and then have somebody give you a bunch of money to go see if it works? And that's the exciting part of what's happening in, I think, the crypto universe. Right. But also, kind of gives me pause. It just kind of astounds me that people have been funding these back of the napkin ideas at such a high rate of capital. Our team a while back looked at the top 200 value coins on CoinMarketCap, and I think it was 50 to 55% of them didn't even have a product, and several of them had $1 billion valuation. So, that tells you a lot about kind of where we are in the space. And as far as competition, I mean, kind of the way we look at it, we decided is kind of not to look at it. And the reason is because my partner and co-founder, Steve McGarry, last, it's October or November, was sending me, almost every day, somebody else entering the digital content space. There's just so many ideas popping up. Right. I think they said in December there was 100 or 150 ICOs coming out of Russia a week. And so if you start multiplying that, globally, it's just a lot of people with a lot of ideas and a lot of white papers. So what we said is, let's just kind of turn all that off and really just start to build a product. And if you build a good product and you're first, you can kind of plant your flag everywhere. So that's how we're kind of thinking about competition. As far as Patreon, it's interesting. We started putting this together and then came across Patreon a couple months after we had started building, and we were thrilled because it kind of validated what we knew was needed in the marketplace. So Patreon's been around for several years, San Francisco company, and what they do is they're a marketplace for content creators. I think they have 50,000 content creators signed up, and you can go on their website and you can put in your credit card, and every month they'll take out $5, $10, whatever that number is, or you can contribute. So Patreon gets their name from patronage, which is, let's say to support the arts or to contribute, which was a lot of people have said, AC3 is the Patreon of blockchain, but with more features.
Gotcha.
And of course, we're not using Visa or traditional financing, but I can see the similarities there. Patreon in January tried to raise their prices. They charge 10% off from each transaction, and they tried to raise that price. And within a day, there was a pretty big backlash because the margins are small, and it's hard to make money in the content space, even if you've got big followings, the way the current model is with ads and such.
Right.
And they're very sensitive to it. And the next day, Patreon said, "Hey, we made a mistake." They owned it. But I think the point is that there's certainly people are starting to figure out how important in the future is the content, digital content, and that there's some price sensitivity to it. So that gave us a lot of confidence that we were on the right track.
Right. Yeah, I could see that, and I think you're right on in terms of your approach or understanding of the stage of this space, and that it's so early on that it's almost you almost don't know what to compete with if you were to compete with something, because it's not clear that anything is mature enough to be the right business model or the best business model, et cetera. It's not like you're competing like GM versus Ford trucks or something like that. I mean, it really you have to listen to the customer and watch the technology, how it's evolving. So I think it's a great outlook, and again, you're seeing really some validation of your concept out there, anyways, which is great. So, we got a few minutes left here, but before we get out here, there's always a couple of questions I'd like to ask people that come on the show, and one is, and I love hearing this from people that are really just knee deep, shoulder deep in the technology. One question is there something about today's technical landscape, the digital landscape that's out there that's moving so fast that is really challenging you? That's giving you some pause or makes you think twice, or maybe it presents a real even larger opportunity that the rest of us mere mortals just aren't seeing yet. What would you say?
Yeah, that's a good question. We've been really struggling with how do I say it? Authenticity, realness in the marketplace. For instance, finding service providers or third parties that are competent and responsive. That can go anywhere from somebody posted an article on us, it was a very positive, organic article we're happy about, but had a lot of misinformation in it, which happens. Mm-hmm. But it talked about, in one paragraph just mentioned an ICO, we're going to sell some coins, and we've worked so hard to stay out of the crosshairs of regulators. So I've spent weeks trying to get them to correct that or fix it, and they just won't respond because everyone's drinking from a fire hose and moving a million miles an hour. Right. And then, we're trying to get out there with get marketing and, get our story out there. There's a lot of people that see an opportunity to, hey, I want to help you. I like what you're doing. I'll help you get, unpaid stories. And, but, they want money up front, and they kind of switch the story around, and it just, doesn't feel right. And I understand that in a nascent business and industry, people are trying to figure it out, and there's some charlatans walking around. Right. But it's frustrating because you can waste your time and resources, going down kind of the wrong paths. Mm-hmm. So we unfortunately and we struggle with how to find out what's real and not in this space. If that makes sense. Yeah, no, it does. I think it's a reflection of just what's been going on recently with Facebook, for example, where I think it's just the growing pains of really the beginning of this maturation of the connection economy in a way, where it's like these things are moving fast, and there's going to be some bumps in the road. But that's good to highlight that and to see what your reaction is to, and for everybody else to hear that out there. So it sounds like you guys are sensitive and are on the right track there. But you know what? It brought up this one extra question, which I want to slip in here before we get out of here, in that, I saw some reports recently on, this goes to the cryptocurrency and the kind of the hype aspect, cryptocurrency versus these ICOs, and what the SEC might think about them. And I figured, since you're with your financial background here, I want to make sure I get this in. And they're calling, like, Ether and Ripple and some of these other currencies that are out there non-compliant securities. Does AC3
Would they fall in that definition as a non-compliant security? And the reason they're calling them that is that that they have these other use cases and values, and they went with an ICO to raise money, but they're calling themselves a currency. And if they call themselves a currency, well, there's a different definition of currency that the SEC has. Does this make sense to you? What I'm asking you?
Yeah, sure. I'll answer that by saying, we self-funded, which is just almost as rare as building your own blockchain protocol.
Right.
And so we did not crowdfund. We did not do any public.
Right.
There
was no ICO.
No ICO, and we made that decision last year. And some people thought we were nuts for doing that because there was a money grab that certainly could have taken place.
Yep.
But we didn't do that for two reasons. The one is I've been involved with public companies before, and I thought from the beginning these ICOs were securities, or at least the way they were structured. I'm not a securities attorney, but it felt like that to me.
Yes.
So we've really gone out of our way to be compliant with state and federal regulations. The first dollar we spent was on a kind of a payment specialist out of DC, so we take it pretty serious. It does slow us down at times, particularly when some of the key issues are amorphous. I mean, this is a gray area.
Right.
And it's tempting to cut corners because you're trying to move forward and you're trying to succeed. But we end up treading with caution. We do miss out on opportunities, but we're looking at the long game. And I tell my team, I said, look, we wear belts and suspenders around here when it comes to the regulations. But at the end of the day, our goal is if they line everybody up, that we're at the back of the line, and by the time they get to us, they'll run out of bullets, right? Because
right.
Some of this is just, it's amorphous. It's not on terra firma yet, and it's the smartest legal minds are still trying to grapple with it. So
yeah, I agree.
We tried with caution, but I wouldn't venture into. It's a good question you asked. It's the $1 billion question about the other ones.
That's right.
I just know what we've tried to achieve and what we have achieved with our approach.
Okay, well, cool. Well, thanks for clarifying that because I was kind of curious as to where that was. I didn't quite understand that myself. So you're self-funded. That's great. I think it's, again, as if you're just tackling and starting a new business now, I think it's a good, less risky position to take. And if you can do it and self-fund, you should always self-fund. Why do you need someone else's money if you know your project's going to work and you have customers? Let your customers fund you. That's what I say.
Yeah, exactly.
So okay, so my last question for you here is, now that you're really in the mix of all this, of reinventing the financial world in a way, how do you continue to reinvent yourself and keep your mind open as things are moving so fast? Like, what works for you, or what do you what's your go-to, when you're at home at night when you're thinking about, wow, I'm overwhelmed,
Yeah. My answer is going to be kind of counterintuitive to how do you reinvent and continually reinvent yourself. For me, it's very important to constantly be vigilant as a gatekeeper to information that I allow inside my head. So what I mean by that is it's really easy to be bombarded by low quality information that stimulates, but ends up just eating up your time and confuses what potentially could be some innovative ideas. So I guess my thesis is I believe that low quality information will make you less inventive. And you could spend every waking hour reading people's thoughts on blockchain and cryptocurrencies. And many of their opinions are interesting to read and are entertaining, but it's not really, if you have an understanding, a grasp, it's really not going to help you move the ball forward or kind of open up your creative mind. There's so many distractions out there. And so I really pick carefully what I allow myself to consume and when I will do it. So I do have a few resources that I read often. But I really try to limit the inputs.
I see. Wow, I like that idea. It kind of resonates with me because I think it's been a little over 3 years now that I got rid of my cable. And it wasn't initially it was just over fighting with Time Warner about my bill, and I thought, I'm gonna get rid of all this stuff, and I'll get it back because I couldn't figure out my bill and they were charging me too much. But since then, I thought, let me try this as a trial to kind of get some of that noise out of my head, and I tell you what, my life has been a lot better since.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, because it's sort of like it just. Maybe because it's a balance now where it's like, yes, I'm on my phone more and I do, have my devices that I look at more since I got rid of that. But it's kind of quieted things down for me, which is cool and allowed me to just continue thinking about the world in a different way without that noise in the way, So that's cool. I like that idea. Well, John, hey, thanks for being on the show. If people are interested in finding out more about AC3 or getting involved or joining the platform, what do they do? Where would the listeners go?
Sure. So you can go to ac3.io. And Jim, I really like what you're doing. I love this idea. It's a lot of synergies with what we're doing in terms of what has value and what is worth pursuing. And I've listened to several of your podcasts and have enjoyed them. And so I'm sure that. Yeah,
that's great. Appreciate it.
Doing a really good job, and I'm sure your, listeners are like-minded. So anyone who would like to go to our website, download our wallet at ac3.io, send a email to team@ac3.io, and I'd be happy to, and put in the subject line, Jim or Reinvention Revolution, something to signify it.
Okay.
And then I'll personally, make sure that every listener gets $20 worth of AC3 coins. They can use that in our system to purchase content. Of course, we're on different exchanges around the world, but would love to get. This is the kind of people we want to connect with who have opinions and are searching, and eventually they can give us feedback and input and make our product stronger and our community better.
Wow, that's phenomenal, John. First of all, that's very generous, and I appreciate that, and I appreciate you listening to the show. And you know what? I'm just feel all kinds of butterflies inside right now because I feel like we're jiving, and it's really this is what the reinvention revolution is about in my mind. Trying to figure out these new technologies, exploring, taking a taste of them, seeing if they're right for you, and I really appreciate that if someone out there is listening and that wants to check this out, they get a free $20 to check it out. It's like if you want to spend an hour of your time to dig into what the future might hold, you get paid to do it. That's incredible. So thank you so much. I really appreciate that. And all those details will get worked out. Obviously you can rewind and listen to the episode, but I'll try to put the right pointers in the show notes, and John, I'll follow up with you about that so that people can take advantage of it.
Terrific. Thanks, Jim.
Okay, cool. Thanks so much. Thank you for listening to Jim's Reinvention Revolution podcast. If you want to hear more, join our mailing list at jimjimsreinventionrevolution.com. See you next time, and remember, the revolution has just begun. So dig in, embrace the process of reinvention, and start realizing the success you've always dreamed of.